the Asuka period of Japan, spanning roughly from the 6th to the 8th centuries, was a time of profound transformation. The nation was in flux, straddling ancient traditions and the new influences pouring in from the Korean peninsula and China. Buddhism was taking root, political systems were evolving, and powerful clans vied for control of the imperial court. Amid this backdrop of change, the story of Tachibana no Michiyo begins, set against the volatile and oftentimes treacherous landscape of imperial politics. Tachibana no Michiyo was born into the prestigious Ōtomo clan, one of the most influential families of the time. The Ōtomo had long served the Yamato court as military leaders and diplomats, their bloodline intertwined with the fabric of Japan's early statehood. Michiyo grew up in a household steeped in tradition but also marked by ambition. Her upbringing prepared her for the life she would eventually lead, one fraught with power struggles, loyalty tests, and heartbreaking loss. Michiyo's marriage to Prince Ōtomo, the son of Emperor Tenji, was more than a union of two individuals. It was a political alliance, a bond forged to strengthen ties between the imperial family and the Ōtomo clan. Prince Ōtomo, known for his intelligence and charisma, was groomed from a young age to succeed his father. Michiyo, for her part, brought not only the prestige of her lineage but also a sharp mind and an unyielding resolve that would prove invaluable to her husband's ambitions. Life at court was both a privilege and a peril. The imperial palace in Asuka, though magnificent, was a cauldron of intrigue. Clans like the Fujiwara and Soga maneuvered for influence, their ambitions clashing in both overt and subtle ways. For a young woman like Michiyo, navigating these waters required skill, intuition, and an unshakable sense of loyalty. Yet, she excelled. Even in her early years at court, Michiyo was known for her ability to forge alliances and mediate disputes, earning her the respect of allies and adversaries alike. By the time Emperor Tenji passed away in 671, the political landscape of Japan was a tinderbox. The question of succession loomed large, with two primary contenders, Prince Ōtomo, the son of the late emperor, and Prince Ōama, his uncle. The court was divided, and loyalties were tested. Emperor Tenji had named Prince Ōtomo as his successor, but this decision was far from uncontested. Prince Ōama, a seasoned warrior and statesman, had garnered significant support among the aristocracy and military. Michiyo found herself thrust into the heart of this crisis. As the wife of the crown prince, she was not merely a passive observer. She was an active participant in the unfolding drama. Her position required her to manage relationships within the court, secure alliances for her husband, and prepare for the possibility of conflict. Despite the odds, Michiyo remained steadfast, her dedication to Prince Ōtomo unwavering. When Prince Ōtomo ascended the throne in 672, taking the name Emperor Kōbun, it marked a brief moment of triumph for Michiyo and her family. Yet, the specter of civil war loomed large. Prince Ōama, refusing to accept the legitimacy of Kōbun's rule, marshaled his forces and declared open rebellion. What followed was the Jinshin War, a conflict that would not only shape the fate of Japan, but also test the limits of Michiyo's courage and resilience. The war was brutal and swift. Kōbun's forces, though formidable, were no match for the seasoned troops led by Ōama. As the tide turned against her husband, Michiyo found herself grappling with a reality she had long feared. The imperial court, once a place of grandeur and stability, became a battleground, its gilded halls echoing with the whispers of betrayal and despair. In the face of these challenges, Michiyo's resolve never wavered. She stood by Emperor Kōbun, offering him counsel and solace even as their world crumbled around them. Her efforts to rally support and maintain morale were heroic. But ultimately, they were not enough. The Jinshin War ended in Kōbun's defeat, and the consequences were devastating. Emperor Kōbun was forced to abdicate and soon after met his tragic end, reportedly taking his own life to preserve what remained of his dignity. For Michiyo, the fall of her husband marked the beginning of a new chapter. one defined by survival and legacy. Stripped of her title and status, she faced the daunting task of protecting her children and ensuring the continuity of her lineage. In the chaotic aftermath of the Jinshin War, she navigated the dangerous political landscape with the same tenacity that had defined her earlier years at court. Tachibana no Michiyo's story is one of loyalty, resilience, and quiet strength. Though she lived in an era dominated by men, her influence was undeniable. As a wife, mother, and member of the Ōtomo clan, she left an indelible mark on the history of Japan. Her legacy intertwined with the rise and fall of emperors. This tale, set against the backdrop of one of Japan's most tumultuous periods, is a testament to the enduring power of determination and the human spirit. The Asuka period was an era of profound change in Japan's history, marked by the gradual consolidation of power under the Yamato court and the adoption of Chinese political and cultural systems. It was a time when noble families, their fates intertwined with the imperial court, vied for influence and prestige. Among these families was the Ōtomo clan, to which Tachibana no Michiyo belonged. The Ōtomo clan traced its lineage back to ancient times, with claims of descent from the kami themselves. They were warriors, scholars, and diplomats who had served the Yamato rulers for centuries. By the time of Michiyo's birth, the clan's power had waned somewhat, overshadowed by rivals like the Fujiwara and Soga. Yet, the Ōtomo remained a force to be reckoned with, their legacy enshrined in the collective memory of the court. Michiyo was born into this storied lineage, her childhood shaped by the grandeur and intrigue of the clan's position within the aristocracy. Her early years were spent in the family's ancestral estate, a sprawling compound of wooden halls and meticulously tended gardens. Here, she was educated in the arts of poetry, calligraphy, and court etiquette, her tutors instilling in her the virtues of loyalty and perseverance. But beyond the serene facade of the estate, Michiyo's world was one of constant political maneuvering. Her father, an influential member of the Ōtomo clan, was a close advisor to Emperor Tenji. He often spoke of the challenges facing the imperial court, from the growing power of rival clans to the threats posed by regional governors who sought greater autonomy. These conversations, though not intended for her ears, left a deep impression on the young Michiyo. She understood from an early age that power was both a privilege and a burden, one that required constant vigilance to maintain. As Michiyo grew older, her beauty and intelligence became the subject of admiration within the court. She was described as possessing a serene grace that belied her sharp intellect, her presence commanding attention in any gathering. It was perhaps inevitable that she would catch the eye of Prince Ōtomo, the son of Emperor Tenji and a rising star within the court. Their union was arranged with the dual purpose of solidifying ties between the imperial family and the Ōtomo clan, and ensuring Michiyo's talents would serve the future emperor. The marriage of Michiyo and Prince Ōtomo was a grand affair, marked by elaborate ceremonies and lavish displays of wealth. The court buzzed with speculation about the young couple, their union seen as a harbinger of a new era. For Michiyo, the marriage represented both an opportunity and a challenge. She was now part of the imperial family, her position granting her access to the highest echelons of power. But with this privilege came immense responsibility. Life in the imperial court was a stark contrast to Michiyo's childhood. The palace was a labyrinthine complex of corridors and courtyards, its walls adorned with murals depicting scenes from history and mythology. At its heart lay the audience hall, where the emperor held court and issued decrees. It was here that Michiyo first witnessed the full scope of the court's ambitions and rivalries. The Soga clan, though diminished from its former glory, still wielded considerable influence, while the Fujiwara clan was rapidly ascending to dominance. Both clans viewed Prince Ōtomo with a mix of admiration and suspicion, recognizing his potential to reshape the court's balance of power. Michiyo, ever observant, quickly grasped the dynamics at play. She made it her mission to support her husband, acting as his confidant and advisor. Michiyo's role within the court extended beyond her duties as a wife. She was an active participant in the cultural life of the court, hosting poetry gatherings and sponsoring the construction of Buddhist temples. Her patronage of the arts earned her widespread acclaim, while her diplomatic acumen made her a trusted mediator in disputes. Through these efforts, Michiyo helped to solidify her husband's position and elevate the standing of the Ōtomo clan. As Emperor Tenji's health began to decline, the question of succession loomed large. The emperor had several sons, but Prince Ōtomo was the most prominent, his charisma and leadership qualities setting him apart. Michiyo played a key role in rallying support for her husband, leveraging her connections and negotiating with influential courtiers. Her efforts were instrumental in securing Ōtomo's designation as crown prince, a moment that marked the culmination of years of careful planning and perseverance. Yet, even as Michiyo and her husband celebrated this achievement, the seeds of discord were being sown. Prince Ōtomo, the emperor's brother, had long harbored ambitions of his own. A seasoned warrior and statesman, he commanded the loyalty of many within the court and the provinces. Tensions between the two factions simmered beneath the surface, their rivalry threatening to erupt into open conflict. Michiyo, ever mindful of the precariousness of their position, urged caution. She counseled her husband to avoid antagonizing Ōtomo, advocating for a conciliatory approach. But the dynamics of the court were beyond their control, and events soon spiraled out of their hands. The death of Emperor Tenji in 671 marked the beginning of a turbulent chapter in Michiyo's life. As the court gathered to mourn the loss of their ruler, the question of succession came to the forefront. Prince Ōtomo was formally declared emperor, taking the name Kōbun, but his ascension was met with resistance, as Prince Ōtomo refused to recognize his legitimacy. In the months that followed, the court became a battleground for competing factions. Michiyo worked tirelessly to maintain stability, her diplomatic skills put to the ultimate test. She negotiated with allies, placated rivals, and sought to bolster her husband's authority. Her efforts were remarkable, a testament to her unwavering dedication and resourcefulness. But despite her best efforts, the situation deteriorated. Prince Ōtomo, rallying his supporters, declared open rebellion, plunging the nation into civil war. The Jinshin War had begun, a conflict that would not only determine the fate of the throne, but also irrevocably alter Michiyo's life. In the face of this crisis, Michiyo remained resolute. She stood by her husband, offering him counsel and solace as they prepared for the battles ahead. Her strength and composure inspired those around her, a beacon of hope in a time of uncertainty. As the war raged on, Michiyo's role became even more crucial. She coordinated efforts to secure resources, manage logistics, and maintain morale. Her knowledge of court politics and clan alliances proved invaluable, her contributions earning her the admiration of allies and the respect of adversaries. Yet, even the most formidable efforts could not turn the tide of the war. Prince Ōtomo's forces, seasoned and well-organized, overwhelmed the imperial army. As defeat loomed, Michiyo faced the unthinkable prospect of losing everything she had fought for. The fall of Emperor Kōbun marked the end of an era for Michiyo and her family. But her story was far from over. In the wake of her husband's tragic demise, she would embark on a new journey, one defined by resilience, determination, and the pursuit of legacy. The imperial court during the Asuka period was a world of grandeur, subtle politics, and relentless ambition. It was a place where alliances were forged and broken, where whispered conversations could change the fate of empires, and where every action carried weighty consequences. For Tachibana no Michiyo, this world was both her home and her battlefield. As the wife of Prince Ōtomo, Michiyo was not merely an ornament of the court but an active participant in its dynamics. Her position placed her at the heart of decision-making, where her intelligence, grace, and keen understanding of human nature became invaluable assets. Within the gilded halls of the palace, Michiyo established herself as a mediator and negotiator, her counsel sought by courtiers and officials alike. Michiyo's presence at court was a carefully cultivated balance of visibility and discretion. She attended ceremonial events, her attire reflecting the latest courtly fashions, and her demeanor exuding poise and authority. Yet, she rarely spoke out of turn, understanding that her influence lay in the subtleties of her actions. Her ability to read the room, to gauge the shifting allegiances of courtiers, and to navigate the labyrinthine politics of the palace made her a formidable figure. One of Michiyo's most significant contributions to court life was her role in fostering the cultural and spiritual enrichment of the imperial household. She was a devoted patron of the arts, sponsoring poets, musicians, and calligraphers whose works enriched the court's cultural tapestry. Her salons, gatherings where scholars and artists exchanged ideas, became a hallmark of her tenure, earning her widespread admiration. Her devotion to Buddhism, which was gaining prominence during the Asuka period, further solidified her reputation. Michiyo was instrumental in supporting the construction of temples and the commissioning of Buddhist art, her actions reflecting a deep spiritual commitment. This patronage was not merely an expression of faith but also a political statement, aligning her and her husband with the progressive ideals of the time. In addition to her cultural contributions, Michiyo played a critical role in managing the intricate web of alliances that sustained her husband's position. The Ōtomo clan, though historically powerful, faced growing challenges from rival families like the Fujiwara and Soga. Michiyo worked tirelessly to maintain the clan's influence, using her charm and intellect to build bridges between factions. One notable example of her diplomatic prowess came during a period of tension between the Ōtomo and Fujiwara clans. The Fujiwara, whose rise to power was reshaping the court, viewed Prince Ōtomo with suspicion. Michiyo, recognizing the need for reconciliation, orchestrated a series of private meetings between key figures from both clans. These meetings, held under the guise of cultural exchanges, laid the groundwork for a fragile but essential truce. Michiyo's efforts extended beyond diplomacy. She was deeply involved in the administration of her husband's estates, ensuring that resources were managed efficiently and that revenues were directed toward strengthening their position. Her keen understanding of economic matters set her apart from many of her contemporaries, allowing her to make informed decisions that benefited both her family and the broader court. As Emperor Tenji's health declined, the stakes grew higher. Michiyo and her husband faced mounting pressure to consolidate their power and prepare for the inevitable succession crisis. Michiyo's role during this period was pivotal. She acted as a stabilizing force, her presence a source of reassurance for those loyal to Prince Ōtomo. Her ability to project confidence and maintain composure under pressure inspired those around her, bolstering their resolve. Her contributions were not without challenges. The court was rife with intrigue, and Michiyo had to contend with rival factions seeking to undermine her husband's position. The Soga clan, though diminished, remained a force to be reckoned with, their members adept at exploiting weaknesses. Michiyo's vigilance and strategic thinking were critical in countering these threats, her actions often the difference between success and failure. Despite the obstacles, Michiyo remained steadfast in her support of her husband. She believed in his vision for Japan, one rooted in stability, progress, and unity. Her dedication to this cause was unwavering, her actions driven by a profound sense of duty. As the court prepared for the transition of power, Michiyo found herself at the center of a storm. The death of Emperor Tenji in 671 marked a turning point, the vacuum of leadership triggering a scramble for control. Michiyo's efforts to rally support for Prince Ōtomo were tireless, her determination an anchor for those who looked to her for guidance. When Prince Ōtomo was declared Emperor Kōbun, it was a moment of triumph for Michiyo and her family. Yet, she understood that the challenges were far from over. The court, though outwardly united, remained divided, and the threat posed by Prince Ōtomo loomed large. Michiyo, ever the pragmatist, began preparing for the trials that lay ahead. her resolve unshaken. Her life at court during this period was a delicate balancing act. Her actions a blend of diplomacy, strategy, and cultural stewardship. She was a woman of her time, yet her contributions transcended the limitations of her era. Her legacy a testament to the power of resilience and adaptability. As tensions escalated and the Jinshin War approached, Michiyo's role became even more critical. She was not merely the wife of an emperor but a leader in her own right, her actions shaping the course of history in ways that would echo through the ages. In the twilight of Emperor Tenji's reign, the Yamato court was steeped in uncertainty. The emperor, a visionary leader who had implemented key reforms to centralize power and strengthen Japan's governance, was ailing. His health had been deteriorating for years, leaving the court on edge and the question of succession unresolved. It was against this backdrop of political fragility and looming crisis that Prince Ōtomo, Emperor Tenji's eldest son, began his ascent to power, with Tachibana no Michiyo by his side. Prince Ōtomo had always been at the forefront of courtly life, groomed for leadership from a young age. He was intelligent, charismatic, and adept at navigating the treacherous waters of court politics. Yet, his path to the throne was not guaranteed. Despite being the emperor's favored son, he faced a formidable rival, Prince Ōtomo, his uncle and a skilled military strategist with significant support among the aristocracy and provincial governors. Michiyo played a crucial role during this pivotal period. As Prince Ōtomo's wife, her position was not merely ceremonial. She was his confidant, advisor, and strategist, working tirelessly to solidify his claim to the throne. While Ōtomo focused on consolidating his base of support within the court, Michiyo turned her attention to forging alliances with key figures in the broader political landscape. One of her most notable achievements was her outreach to the provincial governors and local leaders who controlled Japan's agricultural and military resources. These regional powers, though technically subordinate to the imperial court, held considerable sway. Michiyo understood the importance of securing their loyalty and worked behind the scenes to build bridges. Her diplomacy, often conducted through trusted intermediaries, emphasized shared values and the promise of stability under Prince Ōtomo's rule. Within the court, Michiyo's influence was equally significant. She maintained a careful balance of charm and pragmatism, earning the respect of allies and disarming potential rivals. Her patronage of the arts and Buddhism, already well established, became a tool for fostering goodwill and projecting an image of a harmonious and prosperous future under her husband's reign. Every poem she sponsored, every temple she supported, was a calculated move to strengthen Ōtomo's position. As Emperor Tenji's condition worsened, the court became a hive of activity. The emperor, aware of the potential for a succession crisis, attempted to secure Ōtomo's position by naming him crown prince. This decision, however, was far from universally accepted. Prince Ōtomo, who had been passed over despite his considerable experience and popularity, withdrew from the court in a move that many interpreted as a precursor to rebellion. Michiyo's response to this development was swift and decisive. She recognized the danger posed by Ōtomo's withdrawal and began working to shore up support among the court's factions. Her efforts were both political and personal. She cultivated relationships with influential courtiers, reinforcing their loyalty to Ōtomo through a combination of persuasion and subtle pressure. At the same time, she sought to counter Ōtomo's narrative, portraying Ōtomo as the legitimate heir and a unifying figure for a divided court. Despite her best efforts, tensions continued to rise. Emperor Tenji's death in late 671 marked the beginning of an unprecedented power struggle. Ōtomo, now Emperor Kōbun, ascended the throne in a ceremony that was as much about asserting legitimacy as it was about tradition. The court, though outwardly loyal, was rife with hidden agendas and simmering resentments. Michiyo's role during this critical juncture cannot be overstated. As the new empress consort, she became a symbol of continuity and stability, Her presence at Kōbun's side was a reassurance to his supporters and a warning to his rivals. Yet, she knew that the challenges they faced were far from over. The court was a powder keg, and the threat of rebellion loomed large. In the months following Kōbun's ascension, Michiyo worked tirelessly to consolidate their position. She oversaw the coordination of court ceremonies, using these events to reinforce the legitimacy of Kōbun's rule. She also continued her efforts to strengthen alliances, reaching out to those who had yet to fully commit to her husband's cause. But even as Michiyo labored to secure stability, the seeds of discord were taking root. Prince Ōtomo, from his retreat in the eastern provinces, was gathering support for a challenge to the throne. His network of allies, cultivated over years of service as a senior statesman and military leader, began to coalesce into a formidable opposition. The first signs of open defiance emerged in early 672. Reports reached the court of skirmishes in the provinces. As Ōtomo's forces clashed with those loyal to Kōbun, the situation quickly escalated, with both sides mobilizing for a conflict that would soon engulf the entire nation. For Michiyo, the prospect of war was both a personal and political crisis. She understood the stakes. Victory would secure her husband's place in history, while defeat would mean the end of their dynasty and likely their lives. Her response was characteristically composed. While Kōbun and his advisors focused on military strategy, Michiyo took on the task of maintaining morale and ensuring the court remained united. Her efforts were not limited to the palace. Michiyo reached out to provincial leaders, urging them to stand by the emperor in the face of rebellion. She emphasized the dire consequences of division, appealing to their sense of loyalty and duty. Her messages, delivered through trusted envoys, were both heartfelt and strategic, a reflection of her unwavering commitment to her husband's cause. Despite her best efforts, the challenges proved insurmountable. Ōtomo's forces, better organized and more experienced, gained the upper hand as the Jinshin War unfolded. Michiyo could only watch as the tide turned against them, her hope tempered by the harsh realities of the conflict. The death of Emperor Tenji had set in motion a chain of events that would forever change the course of Japanese history. For Michiyo, it was a time of profound trial, her resilience and resourcefulness tested to their limits. Yet, even in the face of overwhelming odds, she remained a pillar of strength, her actions shaping the legacy of her husband and the Ōtomo clan. The Jinshin War of 672 was unlike any conflict the Yamato court had faced before. It was not a skirmish between distant provinces or a border dispute with foreign powers. It was an internal struggle, a civil war that pitted brother against brother, uncle against nephew, and clan against clan. At its heart were two men, Emperor Kōbun, the young and ambitious son of Emperor Tenji, and Prince Ōtomo, his seasoned uncle with a loyal and battle-hardened following. As the storm of war descended upon the imperial court, Tachibana no Michiyo found herself at the center of a struggle that would determine not only the fate of her husband and family, but the destiny of the nation. The war's origins lay in the aftermath of Emperor Tenji's death. Despite Kōbun's ascension, the court was fractured. Many courtiers viewed Ōtomo, proven military leader, as a more capable ruler. Michiyo recognized the precariousness of their position. She worked tirelessly to rally support for Kōbun, reaching out to provincial governors, military commanders, and influential courtiers. But the shadow of Ōtomo's rebellion loomed large. Ōtomo had retreated to the eastern provinces, where he quietly began building his forces. His strategy was one of calculated patience. Rather than rushing into battle, he consolidated his power, leveraging the loyalty of governors and the wealth of the provinces to fund his campaign. His network of allies grew steadily, as did his army. By the time word of his preparations reached the court, it was too late to contain the threat through diplomacy. For Michiyo, the beginning of the Jinshin War was a period of intense activity. The palace, once a place of relative stability, became a hive of anxious energy. Advisors and generals came and went, their voices echoing through the corridors as they debated strategy and logistics. Michiyo's role in this chaos was both subtle and profound. She acted as a calming presence for Kōbun, offering him guidance and reassurance in moments of doubt. At the same time, she worked behind the scenes to maintain unity within the court, ensuring that rival factions did not undermine their efforts. Despite her efforts, the situation quickly spiraled out of control. In the spring of 672, Wama's forces launched a series of coordinated attacks on key strongholds loyal to Kōbun. These assaults, swift and decisive, destabilized the imperial army and emboldened Ōtomo's supporters. As news of these defeats reached the court, the mood grew increasingly dire. Kōbun, though determined, was inexperienced in warfare. His advisors urged him to adopt a defensive strategy, fortifying the capital and preparing for a protracted conflict. But Kōbun, perhaps underestimating the strength of Ōtomo's forces, chose a more aggressive approach. He dispatched troops to intercept Ōtomo's army, hoping to halt their advance before they reached the heart of the Yamato region. Michiyo, though not a military strategist, understood the risks of this plan. She voiced her concerns in private, urging caution and emphasizing the need to preserve their resources. But Kōbun, driven by a desire to assert his authority, was resolute. Michiyo, ever loyal, supported his decision despite her reservations. As the imperial army marched out to meet Ōtomo's forces, Michiyo turned her attention to the home front. She oversaw the preparation of supplies, coordinated communication between the capital and the field, and worked tirelessly to maintain morale among the court's remaining officials. Her efforts were vital in keeping the administration functional, even as the war consumed more and more of their resources. The first major engagement of the Jinshin War took place near the Asuka River. It was a brutal battle, marked by fierce fighting and significant casualties on both sides. Despite their best efforts, Kōbun's forces were unable to secure a decisive victory. The battle ended in a stalemate, but the psychological toll on the imperial court was immense. For Michiyo, it was a sobering reminder of the challenges they faced. The war dragged on through the summer, with skirmishes erupting across the Yamato region. Ōtomo's forces, though initially outnumbered, displayed remarkable discipline and coordination. Their commanders, many of whom had served under Ōtomo for years, executed their strategies with precision. By contrast, Kōbun's army struggled to maintain cohesion, hampered by inexperienced leadership and the logistical challenges of sustaining a prolonged conflict. Amid the growing chaos, Michiyo's resilience shone through. She became a beacon of hope for those around her, her unwavering dedication inspiring those who still believed in Kōbun's cause. She spent long hours in the palace halls, meeting with courtiers, military officers, and envoys. Her ability to listen, empathize, and mediate disputes proved invaluable in maintaining a semblance of order. But even Michiyo's efforts could not stem the tide of defeat. By late summer, Ōtomo's forces had gained the upper hand, capturing several key strongholds and cutting off vital supply lines to the capital. The court was in disarray, its members increasingly divided over how to proceed. Some advocated for surrender, believing that a negotiated settlement might spare the imperial family. Others urged Kōbun to fight to the bitter end, fearing the consequences of capitulation. Michiyo, ever pragmatic, weighed the options carefully. She understood the stakes. Surrender would mean the end of Kōbun's reign and possibly their lives, while continued resistance risked plunging the nation into deeper turmoil. She counseled her husband with characteristic honesty, urging him to consider the welfare of the people as well as their own survival. As the war approached its climax, Kōbun made the fateful decision to remain in the capital and prepare for a final stand. Michiyo, though heartbroken by the inevitability of their defeat, stood by him. Her presence was a source of strength for Kōbun, a reminder of the values they had fought to uphold. The Jinshin War was not merely a clash of armies but a test of loyalty, resilience, and leadership. For Michiyo, it was a crucible that revealed the depths of her character. Despite the overwhelming odds, she never wavered in her commitment to her husband and their shared vision for Japan. Her actions during this period, though often overshadowed by the dramatic events of the battlefield, were crucial in preserving the dignity and integrity of the imperial court. As the final days of the war approached, Michiyo prepared herself for the sacrifices to come. She knew that the outcome was beyond their control, but she also understood the importance of facing their fate with courage and grace. In doing so, she set an example for future generations. Her legacy a testament to the enduring power of faith, loyalty, and determination. As the Jinshin War intensified, Tachibana no Michiyo found herself in an increasingly precarious position. While Emperor Kōbun's forces struggled to hold back the onslaught of Prince Ōtomo's army, the imperial palace, once a symbol of stability and power, became a nerve center of desperation. Michiyo's steadfast loyalty to her husband and her unyielding resolve to maintain their cause would come to define this dark chapter in her life. In the late summer of 672, the war reached its zenith. Prince Ōtomo's forces, emboldened by a string of victories, pressed ever closer to the capital. Towns and villages that had once pledged loyalty to Emperor Kōbun now fell under Ōtomo's control. The morale of Kōbun's army faltered, and with each passing day, the palace walls seemed to echo with the growing inevitability of defeat. Amid this turmoil, Michiyo remained a pillar of strength. Her unwavering composure and tireless efforts to maintain order within the court provided a beacon of hope for those still loyal to Kōbun. She understood that her role extended beyond mere appearances. She was the emotional and strategic anchor for the emperor and his dwindling circle of supporters. Michiyo's days were filled with endless activity. She convened meetings with courtiers, strategized with military advisors, and ensured that the palace's logistical needs were met despite the disruption caused by the war. She also managed communications between the capital and the remaining loyal strongholds, crafting messages that appealed to loyalty, honor, and the shared legacy of Emperor Tenji. But Michiyo's influence extended beyond the practical. Her presence at the palace was a symbol of resilience. In a time when the court was fractured by fear and uncertainty, her unwavering loyalty to Kōbun inspired those around her to persevere. She walked through the palace halls with quiet dignity, her determination visible in every action. Even as the shadow of defeat loomed larger, Michiyo refused to succumb to despair. Kōbun, for all his ambition and courage, was a young and inexperienced leader. The pressure of war and the weight of his responsibility bore heavily on him. In moments of doubt, it was Michiyo who provided him with counsel and reassurance. She reminded him of the values they stood for: unity, stability, and the welfare of the people. Her words, imbued with wisdom and compassion, helped Kōbun find the strength to carry on, even as the odds turned against them. One of Michiyo's most remarkable acts of loyalty during this time was her effort to secure the safety of their family and closest allies. Understanding the risks posed by an impending defeat, she worked to organize a contingency plan to protect those who would be most vulnerable in the aftermath of the war. She arranged for trusted envoys to escort key members of their household to safe locations, ensuring that their legacy would endure even if the court fell. Despite these efforts, the situation grew increasingly dire. In a critical blow to Kōbun's forces, Prince Ōtomo's army captured the strategic Yamazaki Pass, cutting off the capital from reinforcements and supplies. The victory at Yamazaki not only solidified Ōtomo's control over the region, but also dealt a devastating psychological blow to Kōbun's supporters. As the news of Yamazaki's fall reached the palace, Michiyo faced one of her greatest challenges yet. Many within the court, including some of Kōbun's closest advisors, began advocating for surrender. They argued that continuing the fight would only lead to further bloodshed and the potential annihilation of the imperial family. Michiyo, however, held firm. She understood the symbolic importance of resisting until the very end. Even if victory seemed unattainable, Michiyo's loyalty to Kōbun was not blind devotion. It was rooted in a deep belief in their shared mission. She saw in her husband the embodiment of Emperor Tenji's legacy and the promise of a unified and prosperous Japan. Her actions during this time were driven by a sense of duty, not only to Kōbun but to the ideals they represented. In the face of mounting pressure, Michiyo became a voice of reason and clarity. She counseled Kōbun to weigh his options carefully, balancing the need to preserve the dignity of their reign with the realities of their precarious situation. Her advice was tempered with pragmatism, reflecting her acute understanding of the stakes. As the final days of the war approached, Michiyo prepared herself for the sacrifices to come. She remained by Kōbun's side, offering him unwavering support as they faced the collapse of their cause. Her presence was a source of solace for the embattled emperor, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, loyalty and love could endure. In early September of 672, the inevitable came to pass. Prince Ōtomo's forces, now encircling the capital, launched their final assault. The imperial army, weakened and demoralized, was unable to mount a meaningful defense. The palace fell, and with it, Kōbun's reign came to a tragic end. Michiyo's loyalty amidst the chaos of the Jinshin War stands as a testament to her character. She was more than a passive observer of history. She was an active participant, her actions shaping the course of events in ways that continue to resonate. Her unwavering commitment to her husband and their shared ideals was a beacon of hope in a time of despair, a legacy that would endure long after the war had ended. The fall of Emperor Kōbun was swift and devastating, bringing an end to a brief and tumultuous reign. It marked not only the collapse of his rule, but also the shattering of dreams that Tachibana no Michiyo had fought so hard to protect. As the Jinshin War reached its tragic conclusion, Michiyo's resilience and devotion would be tested as never before. The final days of Emperor Kōbun's reign unfolded in a haze of desperation and mounting chaos, with Prince Ōtomo's forces closing in on the capital. The court was gripped by fear. Advisors and officials fled in droves, abandoning their posts and leaving Kōbun increasingly isolated. For Michiyo, this was a bitter betrayal. The very courtiers who had pledged their loyalty to the emperor now sought to save themselves, forsaking their oaths in the face of impending defeat. Kōbun, though determined to uphold his duty, was overwhelmed by the enormity of the crisis. His inexperience as a ruler and military leader became painfully evident. Despite his best efforts to rally his remaining forces, the odds were insurmountable. Prince Ōtomo's army, bolstered by strategic victories and the loyalty of seasoned commanders, advanced with unrelenting precision. The Yamato region, once the heart of Kōbun's domain, now lay under the control of his uncle's forces. Michiyo stood by her husband through it all, a constant presence of strength and reassurance. Even as the court crumbled around them, she maintained her composure, offering Kōbun the support he so desperately needed. Her loyalty, unwavering in the face of adversity, became a source of solace for the embattled emperor. She refused to abandon him, even as the walls of the palace seemed to close in. The final confrontation came in early September 672, at the battle near the village of Sita. It was here that Kōbun's forces made their last stand against Ōtomo's army. The engagement was brutal and one-sided. Outnumbered and outmaneuvered, Kōbun's troops were quickly overwhelmed. The battle ended in a crushing defeat, leaving the young emperor with no choice but to flee. Kōbun and Michiyo, along with a handful of loyal retainers, sought refuge in the countryside. For a brief moment, it seemed they might evade capture and regroup, but the weight of their defeat was too great. With no army to defend them and no allies willing to offer sanctuary, their fate was sealed. In the days that followed, Kōbun faced an agonizing decision. To continue resisting would only prolong the suffering of their supporters and invite further retribution from Ōtomo's forces. Reluctantly, he chose to abdicate, hoping that his surrender might spare the lives of those who had remained loyal to him. It was a decision born of pragmatism and a deep sense of responsibility. On September 9th, 672, Kōbun formally abdicated the throne. The ceremony, held in a remote and somber setting, was a stark contrast to the grandeur of his coronation just months earlier. Michiyo stood beside him, her expression one of quiet determination. She understood the gravity of the moment and the sacrifices it entailed. In abdicating, Kōbun was relinquishing not only his title but also the very foundation of their shared legacy. The aftermath of Kōbun's abdication was swift and brutal. Prince Ōtomo, now Emperor Tenmu, sought to consolidate his power and eliminate any remaining threats to his rule. Kōbun was taken into custody, his fate no longer his own to decide. For Michiyo, this was a moment of unimaginable grief. The man she had devoted her life to, the father of her children, was now a prisoner of their enemies. On September 24th, 672, just weeks after his abdication, Emperor Kōbun met his tragic end. Accounts of his death vary, but most sources suggest that he took his own life, a final act of defiance and dignity in the face of his enemies. For Michiyo, the loss was devastating. Kōbun's death marked the end of an era and the beginning of a long and uncertain journey for her and their family. Michiyo's role in the aftermath of Kōbun's fall was one of quiet resilience. Stripped of her title and status, she was now a widow in a hostile court. Yet, even in the face of such overwhelming loss, she remained steadfast. Her focus shifted to the survival of her children and the preservation of their lineage. She understood that her family's future depended on her ability to navigate the treacherous political landscape and protect them from retribution. In the days and weeks that followed Kōbun's death, Michiyo worked tirelessly to secure the safety of her children. She appealed to sympathetic courtiers and former allies. Leveraging the goodwill she had built over the years, her efforts bore fruit, ensuring that her children would not suffer the same fate as their father. This act of maternal devotion, carried out under the most trying of circumstances, was a testament to her strength and determination. The fall of Emperor Kōbun was a defining moment in Michiyo's life. It was a time of profound loss and hardship, but also of remarkable resilience. Through her actions, she preserved the dignity of her family and laid the foundation for their eventual redemption. Her loyalty to Kōbun, even in death, remained unshaken, a reflection of the enduring power of love and devotion. As the Jinshin War came to an end and Emperor Tenmu established his rule, Michiyo's life entered a new phase. She would continue to play a vital role in shaping the legacy of her family, her story serving as a powerful reminder of the strength and resilience of the human spirit. The Jinshin War left the imperial court shattered, and Tachibana no Michiyo faced an uncertain future in its aftermath. The fall of Emperor Kōbun had marked the end of her husband's reign and the destruction of everything they had worked to build together. For Michiyo, the loss was devastating, not only as a wife mourning her partner, but as a mother fighting to secure a future for her children in a court now dominated by their enemies. The new ruler, Emperor Tenmu, moved quickly to consolidate his power. His regime sought to erase any lingering traces of Emperor Kōbun's legacy. Fearing that loyalists might rise to challenge his claim, courtiers who had supported Kōbun were purged, their titles and lands confiscated. The Ōtomo clan, once a proud and influential family, found itself sidelined in the new order. For Michiyo, these events were a stark reminder of the precariousness of her position. Despite the political climate, Michiyo refused to succumb to despair. She understood that her survival and that of her children depended on her ability to navigate the shifting dynamics of the court. Her first priority was to protect her family from retribution. She worked tirelessly to shield her children from the worst of the fallout, leveraging her connections and carefully negotiating with courtiers who still held sympathy for her plight. Michiyo's life in this period was one of quiet determination. Stripped of her titles and status, she lived humbly, her days consumed by the practicalities of survival. Yet, she never lost sight of her long-term goals. She remained committed to preserving her children's future, instilling in them the values of resilience, loyalty, and honor that had defined her own life. The years following the Jinshin War were marked by profound personal and political challenges. Michiyo found herself navigating a court that was both hostile and unfamiliar. The alliances she had once relied on were shattered, and the social circles she had moved through with such grace were now dominated by new faces loyal to Emperor Tenmu. Michiyo adapted to these changes with characteristic pragmatism, avoiding unnecessary conflicts and focusing on rebuilding her life. One of Michiyo's most significant challenges was ensuring the safety of her children. As the widow of a deposed emperor, her family was seen as a potential threat to the new regime. Michiyo knew that even the perception of disloyalty could have fatal consequences. She went to great lengths to demonstrate her loyalty to Emperor Tenmu, carefully managing her public image while quietly working to secure her children's future. Michiyo's efforts were not without success. Her children, though stripped of their royal status, were allowed to remain at court, where they received an education and opportunities befitting their lineage. This was no small feat given the political climate. Michiyo's ability to navigate the delicate balance between humility and dignity ensured that her family remained intact and that her children were positioned to reclaim some measure of influence in the future. Throughout this period, Michiyo maintained her deep commitment to Buddhism, finding solace and strength in her faith. She became a patron of religious institutions, using what resources she had to support temples and monasteries. This was not only an expression of her spirituality, but also a way to maintain her connections with influential monks and religious leaders who could provide her with protection and support. Michiyo's resilience during this time was remarkable. Despite the loss of her husband and the collapse of their dynasty, she refused to give up. Her actions reflected a deep understanding of the political realities of her time, as well as an unyielding commitment to her family's survival. She was a woman of quiet strength, her resolve unshaken by the hardships she faced. As the years passed, Michiyo's children grew into adulthood, carrying with them the values and lessons she had instilled in them. Though they would never reclaim the throne, they would go on to lead lives of significance, contributing to the cultural and political fabric of Japan in their own ways. Michiyo's efforts to protect and nurture them had ensured that the legacy of Emperor Kōbun and the Ōtomo clan would endure. By the end of her life, Michiyo had witnessed the rise and fall of empires, the devastation of war, and the resilience of the human spirit. Her journey, marked by profound loss and quiet triumphs, was a testament to the enduring power of loyalty and determination. Though history would remember her husband as a tragic figure, Michiyo's own legacy would be one of strength and perseverance, a symbol of the unbreakable bonds of family and the enduring hope for a better future. As Tachibana no Michiyo's life unfolded in the shadow of the Jinshin War's devastating aftermath, her children became the focal point of her unwavering devotion. For Michiyo, they represented more than her personal hope. They were the embodiment of Emperor Kōbun's legacy and the future of the Ōtomo clan. Despite the court's hostility and the risks of reprisal, Michiyo's efforts ensured that her children would not only survive, but also thrive in a world that had once sought to erase their family from history. In the years following Emperor Kōbun's fall, Michiyo dedicated herself to the careful cultivation of her children's education and character. She instilled in them the values of resilience, humility, and honor, virtues she had lived by during her own tumultuous journey. She emphasized the importance of understanding the political realities of their time while holding true to their family's dignity and legacy. These lessons, forged in the crucible of her struggles, would shape her children's paths in profound ways. Michiyo's eldest son bore the greatest burden of their family's legacy. As the son of a deposed emperor, his very existence was a reminder of the political schisms that had torn the Yamato court apart. Michiyo worked tirelessly to shield him from the court's suspicions while positioning him to regain a measure of influence. She sought allies among the courtiers who had survived the political purges, using her diplomatic skills to rebuild fractured relationships. Through Michiyo's efforts, Her son was eventually allowed to serve in a minor court position, though far removed from the throne. This role provided him with an opportunity to demonstrate his capabilities and build a reputation independent of his father's ill-fated reign. Michiyo, ever pragmatic, viewed this as a vital step in securing her family's long-term survival. She knew that influence could be regained incrementally, through patience and careful maneuvering. Her younger children, less entangled in the political legacy of Emperor Kōbun, were able to pursue lives of relative normalcy. Michiyo ensured they received an education befitting their lineage, exposing them to the cultural and intellectual currents of the time. She encouraged their interest in the arts, religion, and governance, believing that these pursuits would not only enrich their lives but also provide them with avenues to contribute to society. Michiyo's support of Buddhism played a significant role in her children's upbringing. She introduced them to the teachings of the Buddha and the principles of compassion, mindfulness, and perseverance. Through her patronage of temples and monasteries, she secured the mentorship of respected monks who guided her children's spiritual and moral development. This connection to Buddhism also served as a protective measure, as the religious institutions provided a network of support that Michiyo and her family could rely on. As her children matured, Michiyo saw the fruits of her labor take shape. Her eldest son, once a symbol of political vulnerability, became a respected figure within the court. His careful navigation of court politics, guided by the lessons Michiyo had imparted, allowed him to build alliances and regain a degree of prestige for their family, though he would never claim the throne. His contributions to the court's administration were a testament to Michiyo's foresight and determination. Her other children also found their own paths, contributing to the cultural and spiritual life of the nation. One daughter, inspired by Michiyo's devotion to Buddhism, became a nun and dedicated her life to the service of others. Another son entered the military, using his position to protect the family's interests and honor. Through these diverse endeavors, Michiyo's children ensured that the Ōtomo name would endure, not as a relic of the past but as a living part of Japan's evolving story. Michiyo's legacy through her children extended beyond their individual achievements. She had preserved the dignity of her family in the face of overwhelming odds, ensuring that the memory of Emperor Kōbun and the Ōtomo clan would not be erased. Her resilience and resourcefulness had turned a story of defeat into one of quiet triumph. Her actions a testament to the enduring power of love, loyalty, and determination. In her later years, Michiyo lived to see her children's successes and the gradual restoration of her family's standing within the court. Though she never regained the titles and status she once held, she took solace in knowing that her efforts had secured a future for her descendants. Her life, marked by profound challenges and quiet victories, became a source of inspiration for her family and a symbol of perseverance in the face of adversity. By the time of her passing, Michiyo's legacy was firmly established. She had not only survived the fall of an empire, but had ensured that her family rose from its ashes to contribute to Japan's cultural and political life. Through her children and their descendants, the story of Tachibana no Michiyo and Emperor Kōbun lived on, a reminder of the resilience of the human spirit and the enduring power of hope. In the twilight of her life, Tachibana no Michiyo looked back on her journey with a sense of quiet reflection. She had lived through one of the most tumultuous periods in Japan's history, a time of war, political upheaval, and personal tragedy. Yet, amid the chaos, Michiyo had found purpose, preserving her family, safeguarding her children, and ensuring that the legacy of Emperor Kōbun and the Ōtomo clan would endure. Michiyo spent her later years in a state of quiet retirement, far removed from the grandeur and turmoil of the imperial court. She lived humbly, devoting much of her time to prayer and meditation at the temples she had supported throughout her life. Her commitment to Buddhism, which had sustained her through her darkest moments, deepened in these final years. It was in the serene halls of these temples, surrounded by the chanting of monks and the soft flicker of lanterns, that Michiyo found peace. Her children, now grown and established in their respective lives, often visited her, seeking her counsel and sharing their successes. They were a source of immense pride for Michiyo, a living testament to the values she had instilled in them. Through their accomplishments, Michiyo saw the continuation of the legacy she had fought so hard to protect. As she aged, Michiyo became something of a revered figure within her community. Those who knew her spoke of her wisdom, grace, and strength. She was a woman who had endured unimaginable loss yet never wavered in her resolve. Her story, passed down through generations, became a symbol of resilience and devotion, inspiring others to face their own struggles with courage and determination. In her final days, Michiyo reflected on the meaning of her life. She thought of her husband, Emperor Kōbun, whose brief reign had been marked by promise and tragedy. She remembered the love and partnership they had shared, the dreams they had nurtured, and the sacrifices they had made. Though their time together had been cut short, Michiyo felt a deep sense of gratitude for the life they had built. However fleeting, Michiyo also pondered the lessons of the Jinshin War and its aftermath. She understood that history was shaped not only by the great battles and rulers, but also by the quiet actions of individuals striving to do what was right. Her own contributions, though subtle, had been no less significant in protecting her children and preserving their legacy. Michiyo had played a crucial role in shaping the future of her family and, in a small but meaningful way, the nation itself. When the end came, it was peaceful. Michiyo passed away surrounded by her family, her final moments filled with the love and gratitude of those whose lives she had touched. Her passing marked the end of an era but also the beginning of a lasting legacy. After her death, Michiyo's children and descendants continued to honor her memory. They carried forward the values she had imparted, ensuring that the story of Tachibana no Michiyo would not be forgotten. Through their deeds, the Ōtomo clan remained a vital part of Japan's evolving history, their contributions spanning generations. Michiyo's life, though marked by profound loss and hardship, was ultimately one of triumph. She had endured the fall of an empire, the loss of her husband, and the hostility of a court determined to erase her family's name. Yet, through her strength, intelligence, and unyielding devotion, she had turned adversity into opportunity, ensuring that her family's story would endure. As her story became intertwined with the fabric of Japan's history, Tachibana no Michiyo came to be remembered as more than the wife of a fallen emperor. She was a symbol of resilience, a testament to the power of love and loyalty, and a reminder that even in the face of great adversity, hope and determination can prevail. Her life was a story of quiet heroism and enduring legacy, a tale that continues to inspire those who seek to honor the past while building a brighter future.